Since the end of World War II, the federal government extracts, on average, 17% of the total value of our annual economic output. Over that same period, the federal government spends, on average, 19% of that same total value. Our economy is close to $20 trillion. 2 points is a lot of money. Over time, it adds up to a national debt that's as big as our whole economy. $20 trillion. Now, in most cases, when your debt to GDP ratio is 1-to-1, you're in economic basket case territory. I'll leave it to you, dear member, as to whether you would characterize us as an economic basket case. It's enough to say that most of us have a household budget. We can't continue to spend more than we earn, 9 out of 10 every year that we live, without maxing out our credit cards, losing our home, going bankrupt, lots of really terrible things happening. So, when you hear that Republican tax reform plans will increase the deficit by $1 trillion to $1.5 trillion over the next decade, that may be true, but it doesn't have to be true. It's true if you accept the construct that the government has first claim on your dollar, and once it's done spending whatever it likes, you can have the rest. Forgive me, dear member, if I don't accept that construct. I believe the government should have to make do with whatever money we the people decide to give them. It's sort of how I live, and I'll bet it's how you live too. Having dispensed with the notion that an increasing deficit only happens when we keep more of our money, where do things stand now that both the House and the Senate have each passed their own versions of tax reform? Simply put, they passed significantly different plans. Now they have to fight it out to reconcile the differences, and that's called a conference committee. It's essentially a hand-picked group of members from each body that negotiate a final bill. The committee will have Democrats and Republicans on it, but in reality, the Democrats will be limited in their ability to influence the bills. They'll want to raise public opposition to anything the Republicans come up with, and they typically do a pretty good job of that. You may have heard that in cases where the bills are different, the Senate version is likely to prevail. That's because Senate Republicans only have 52 members. They need 50 to vote yes to pass a bill, with VP Mike Pence acting as tiebreaker. The Senate Republicans have a handful of members who have outsized leverage and huge axes to grind. Mitch McConnell has to firewalk his way through this mess and wrangle 50 votes. While it's anyone's guess as to what will end up in the final bill, I want to reiterate NAED's priorities for tax reform. First, lower rates for business. Both bodies lower the corporate tax rate to 20%. Mission accomplished. Maybe. At the last minute, the Senate retained the corporate alternative minimum tax, which both bills had originally repealed. Obviously, we like the House version here. Now, the way pass-through entities are treated is even less obviously great. The House and Senate take different approaches to lowering the tax burden on S-corps and other pass-throughs. We're not in love with either approach to getting pass-throughs on an equal footing with C corporations. The Senate treatment of pass-throughs is especially weak. It offers a 23% deduction for pass-through income for owners. But it's like one of those teaser introductory rates on a credit card. It expires after 2025. Then what? Then you get no deduction, continue to be taxed on all your pass-through income at an only slightly lower rate than exists now. Thanks for nothing. They'll also have to solve the issue of state and local tax deductions. Both bills will repeal the state and local income tax deduction for pass-throughs, but not for C corporations, again leading to an effective rate disparity between C corps and S corps. The Senate always wanted to stick to corporate tax reform only. The House and Ron Johnson dragged them kicking and screaming to tackle pass-throughs. At this point, you may be asking why they bothered. We'll keep fighting for rate parity here. The Senate deduction is good. The phase-out, however, feels like an accounting gimmick meant to keep the deficit projections down. Now that's unacceptable to people trying to run a business. Neither bill even mentioned LIFO, and that's great. We'll fight to keep it that way. But they're looking for money, so it's never safe until the bill's done. Finally, the House repealed the death tax after 5 years. In the meantime, they doubled the standard exemption to a little over $22 million for married couples immediately. The Senate also doubles the exemption, but it keeps the death tax in place permanently. Both maintain full step-up in basis. Obviously, we're going to keep fighting for full repeal. How long will the conference committee take to agree to a final bill? Great question. Nobody knows. Now, they want to be done before Christmas so they can go home, and nothing sharpens lawmakers' focus like going home. Look, it could be really fun to be a politician in Washington, D.C., but I can guarantee you the firestorm of pressure they're getting from people like you and me right now, not fun. The bottom line is, there's a lot to like about both of the bills. There's also a lot of uncertainty, especially for pass-throughs. Some of it's going to depend on what state you operate in. Are you a part of a favored sector that gets treated especially well? There's a lot of variables here, so it's hard to say. I don't know why congressional Republicans in the White House didn't try to do something truly revolutionary, like flattening and really simplifying the tax code, like slowing spending growth, like reimagining the federal budgeting and appropriations processes, like federalism. However, here we are. These are the choices we have in front of us. At this point, not even pro-business tax analysts are unanimous about these bills. So let's see what the final bill looks like. We'll scream from the mountaintops if it's not a real win for our members. Now, stay tuned to this space to hear more about what comes out of the conference committee. And I hope everybody has a great holiday season. Thanks for supporting and thanks for watching.